Welcome to another episode of Spotlight, and it's a very special one today. We're live in the Next.io studio here today, and I'm here with Jeroen from Intellias and Leigh from Future Anthem. Very exciting to have you both with us today. So, Jeroen, can you just start by introducing yourself and what you do at Intellias?
Thank you, Stuart. So I'm Jeroen de Klerk. I've been working in the iGaming industry for over 10 years now, working for companies like Net Entertainment and Entain, primarily on the UK side of things, but over Europe as well. And at Intellias, I'm working as the senior product lead in the iGaming department that we've got. Intellias is an IT service provider. We've got engineers all over the globe, but our hubs for iGaming are within Spain and Bulgaria. And we do many different kinds of projects, but also bespoke solutions in the shape of platform modernizations, AI solutions, modernizations, and other projects that we're doing.
And how about you, Leigh? Future Anthem and yourself?
Hi. Leigh Nissim from Future Anthem. I'm the founder and chief exec. I founded Future Anthem in 2019, largely from all my experiences in the industry since 2005. And I founded the business in order to create better player experiences when they're gambling. So real time is a key focus of ours, acting in the moments that matter. And so we're aiming to always personalize content experiences or create audiences in real time, or similarly prevent churn and early departure. And we've had a good journey. So we're processing over 400 million bets a day inside the platform. We have a fantastic tier one customer set, brilliant team, and a brilliant technology. And it's been a very good journey so far.
Fantastic. We're going to get into some technical conversations today. And the first question that I have, buzzword time, we're going to be talking about a bit about AI. And everyone in the industry and outside, I think everyone in the world is obsessed with sounding like they're AI-led right now. But before we get into that technicality to do with the tools, I am curious about the iGaming industry. What do you think is the problem that the industry is facing that we're failing to define properly when it comes to being AI-led or AI native? So this question is to you both. So Leigh, I might start with you on this one. What are your thoughts around that?
I still think the challenge that most companies have, and some are better than others, is about the data itself. So very hard to deliver great AI solutions if you don't have good quality data underpinning it. And there's very many nuances that go around that. So it's not just about the quality of the data, but it can also be about the cost of processing that data and how heavy that data is. So if you imagine these operator businesses, their data sets are very disparate. They have 30 to 40 gaming suppliers. They'll have number of payment suppliers, CRM, they've got so many vendors coming into their ecosystem, and their data is quite fragmented. And some are legacy businesses that build it up over time, some are newer, but really the challenge remains constant in that getting that data all into a place, again, in real time, because that's where it really matters. Getting into a place where you can do great things with it, whether it's building AI solutions or even go-to-market consumer-facing solutions, that's still hard for these companies. And it's understandably hard in a regulated environment where regulations are different in different parts of the globe. So still really, some of the conversation is there, but not all the conversation is there. They're still very much faced on the front side, which is AI and delivery, so whereas the fundamentals really need to be in place for success.
Yes. I actually posted about this on LinkedIn the other day because I'm facing it myself with data hygiene and architecture. I will address this maybe a little bit later, but I'm just curious, why is this still an issue when surely we have been talking about data for years, decades? Why is it still an issue?
Firstly, it's definitely got better. And a little admission here, when I set the business up, we set the business up for real time. So, and this was about acting in milliseconds. And then as we went around the industry, we figured out not many people had real time data. I laugh now, it wasn't funny at the time. I think it's mostly because game studios do work on real time data, and that was my genesis. spin by spin. But when you went to operators, because it was the wallet level, they didn't always have real-time data available. Now it's changed, right? And in 6 years, I would say not all the industry has real-time data, but certainly more than 50% do have access to real-time data they can do stuff with. So it's got better. And why has it got better? It's got better because if you look at the amount of money that's coming into this sector through companies like Databricks, AWS, and others, the amount of investment that's percolated all the way down into data-driven technologies and solutions, it's so vast that the opportunity to do things with data has really created the environment, the technical environment, and those big companies have really fueled the ability to make much faster strides now than even they could in 2019, 2020, 2021. And let's not forget, that was a COVID period. In COVID period, people were just worried about keeping the lights on because they were so busy because there was no retail gambling as well, right? So some of those things were, taking probably prominence over, getting some of your plumbing in line. So I would say in class the industry is an upward trajectory on here, facilitated by great technologies, whether they're coming from Future Anthem, Intellias, or some of the kind of bigger known US vendors out there. So yeah, it's definitely on an upward trajectory.
Jeroen, what about you? What do you think?
We've seen the same thing on the Intellias side. I mean, when it comes to technology, the iGaming industry has definitely made leaps and bounds to become better in how they operate and what they do, but they're still dealing with a lot of legacy technology, which is an area that we operate in a lot. This could be for a lot of good reasons, right? I mean, BAU needs to keep on going. Money needs to keep being earned, right? So decisions on what should we upgrade versus what should we keep going is something that these companies make on a daily basis. So it's not just about, the data is bad and we need to improve it. It's also about what do we need to improve when and where and at the right time, because you can't just tackle the whole business and upgrade everything in one go, because that breaks the bottom line, that breaks the processes, and that actually, to your question about what breaks first or what is still lagging behind in the industry, it's all around decision making as well, still, from what I've seen and what we've seen. Companies are still struggling to decide what to actually improve or what decisions need to be improved with AI. Especially in the last couple of years with tools like Claude Code and other automation and agentic solutions. It's never been easier to prototype and to build and to get stuff out there. I've seen it myself. I mean, I've been a former engineer. I was elated when I started really getting into the nitty-gritty with ChatGPT and actually finding out that stuff that I used to do in weeks or months writing code, I've now done in days. Now, obviously, that might not be production-worthy code, but the fact that I was that much faster was quite eye-opening, and operators or any kind of company within the iGaming industry will face that same challenge, right? Everybody can suddenly build, everybody can prototype and can bring value to the company, but is it the right value and is it at the right time are decisions that often are not really thought about when you're doing this kind of prototyping, right? I've seen quite often that operational ownership for these kind of solutions is something that people don't really think about when they're doing their kind of prototyping or solutions. So you might have the best personalization engine in the world, but if your organization isn't ready to actually properly operate on that solution, have proper governance in place, measure the success that you need to in order to make sure that your solution is actually worthwhile, you might just be releasing more noise or risk than actual value, and that is still something that we at Intellias see is lagging behind still. And when we work with our clients, that is actually where we spend a lot of our time focusing, not just on building the technical solutions, because when you get to that point, it's quite easy, but to work with these companies to make sure that they understand the people that are required. Where is the human judgment still important, because AI will not remove that. There will be some parts in the process that AI might eliminate some people with, but humans are always necessary. But where do you put that judgment? Where do you put these people and make sure that the governance and decision making is done in the right way? That is still quite challenging.
Would you like to add to that?
I would, just because I want to talk about the humans for a minute, because I want to talk about a couple of things that people never talk about. So one of our mantras is champions. So we love the champions we work with inside these businesses, because these are people that put their hands up. They're quite brave. They're quite vocal. They're confident. They've often been at companies a long time, so people trust them. And these are the people that create true agenda change. We think it's really important to recognise the champions, because they're the people that create true change. Because otherwise it's much easier for people to not to change and not to make hard decisions and not to innovate. And we see them in these businesses all the time, particularly the bigger businesses, because they're working within an environment where there's thousands of people and they're creating an amount of personal risk. Then what happens if this goes wrong? And actually there's nothing wrong if it goes wrong, because you're still trying, you're trying to innovate. You're better off failing fast than kind of dragging things out and not doing anything. So we talk internally a lot, and we've run programs for champions to recognise them as champions. So I think this angle on AI is there's often little spoken about, is the importance of champions in these businesses. People who take ownership, they drive hard, they're proactive, they're smart, and we see them in all of our customers. And there's literally often one to a handful of them in each of the customers, and they're the people you got to back. And the rest of the organisation usually does trust them, but is a really important point of conversation and often overlooked.
I think what both of you have touched on as well is the discovery layer is hugely important. And also the human aspects as well. If we think about those two in combination, the discovery layer and the AI and the humans, what is the most important thing during that layer? Is it asking the right questions? What are the right questions to ask the people that you're working with? How do you go about this discovery layer to address those challenges that you've both raised around real-time data and architecture and hygiene, and the legacy issues that you've brought up as well, Jeroen? What goes into that discovery layer, and what is most important, and how do you bring in that human aspect that sounds important? Obviously disagree if you wish. Could AI do it as well?
Yes and no. I wouldn't take that lens to it necessarily. I would say the most important thing is to have your commercial objectives or technical objectives clear. These are innovation technologies. They can do a lot. Some are easier to achieve than others. Companies like mine thrive on the innovation and raising the bar. So ask, have an aspiration. We'll always be honest. So we'll say, that's really hard to do. That's easier to do. We can do that. We can't do that. We've done that before. We are experts. So rely on us and trust us. But it's that, getting probably expected, that collaboration, but it starts with the champion, clear set of objectives, also a timeline. Fairly basic hygiene stuff. But when you get the conversation, this is really important for new players. I'm doing this because I want to increase conversion of my day 1 to day 2 players, the people who hit the site first in this market. Here's my challenge. That's how I'm going to measure this. That allows you to go very deep, very niche, very focused, and then you can measure success and you can demonstrate success. And you'd be amazed the amount of companies that still don't necessarily know as they go into it what they want to achieve on the other side, and that can create the process issues you're talking about. But that's why I'm back to clear champions. A good champion will know, because they understand their business, they know what they want to hit, they know the pain point, and if they ask and they push us, they will bring the best out of vendors like Future Anthem, because we want to innovate too. Same, I suspect, with Intellias. So I think it is starting pretty basic and obvious, but very, very true.
Would you like to add to that, Jeroen?
I would. So we have that same perspective at Intellias, and actually a lot of our AI programs and AI product strategy accelerators are all focused around that early part of the product development lifecycle, actually. Obviously we see a lot of value in upskilling our clients with AI agentic tooling, but that has to start at the basic level, and that's how we're kind of building everything up. Human judgment to us is extremely key, because during discovery phase it's the humans that need to make the decision of what is valuable. How do we measure that? We start the exact same way as Leigh is explaining it, basically.
Cool. So Jeroen, based on what Leigh was saying about champions and implementing AI into businesses, do you have anything to add to that?
We have the same view at Intellias when it comes to implementing any kind of AI-powered engineering, and most of the programs that we have and frameworks that we have set up actually gear around setting up the entire product development lifecycle, not just adding the tooling or giving the companies cloud code. There's a big difference in adding tools on top of your existing processes, which will just surface the problems that you're already facing a lot quicker when you have those kind of models actually working for you, and actually changing the way that you are working to incorporate AI into your entire business process. The pragmatic AI approach that we apply at Intellias actually also focuses at implementing the right kind of AI tooling and frameworks at the discovery stage, at the requirement stage, at the rapid prototyping that was mentioned earlier, in order to determine that we are delivering the right value at the right time. Because anything you can build nowadays with AI, that is very quick. And additionally, what we do with that is making sure that through what we call an AI harness, to not just give the right tuning at the right time, but also build the right technical layer for these tools, right? To at least implement a level of context-aware discovery that AI tuning can help you out with, because research tools like Perplexity, Cloud Code, other AI tooling will absolutely help you find the right information at the right time, which is a massive benefit when you're actually trying to build a business case or build the kind of requirements that you need to. And we bring that throughout the whole life cycle with champions that Leigh mentioned. You start with a few people that will be uptrained into every part of the life cycle. They will see the benefit, and the whole company will see the benefits from delivering maybe a small greenfield project or something that actually provides real business value that you can measure and that you can see the impact of. And often that is then the catalyst to upskill that further, to create the AI pods, to get the larger engineering side of things to actually adopt that way of working.
Now, before we get into something that isn't just using buzzwords like AI, I did want to ask you, I think what I'm observing is that AI is obviously making the use of code and the accessibility to quite advanced uses of tech more democratic. You know, it's more accessible to even me, more of a layman, and the speed, the efficiency gains that we're all getting from it, I think are being realized to a certain extent. It's a lot quicker to communicate and respond to people, or to have visibility layers. And I think that has led to something that I see as relatively unprecedented for at least the last 2 decades, is the excitement around using tech and getting familiar with a new use case of tech. But with that, I feel comes an opportunity for reality checks, that with that enthusiasm, you just want to get in there and you want to start using the tech, and everyone's using it. From 2 experts, what would you say are blind spots or reality checks that we need as potential laymen who are excited but need to be maybe grounded in more reality? So Jeroen, starting with you, what would you say is a reality check that needs to be had by operators and your clients?
Well, traditionally, software development has always gone through very clear and distinct phases, right? You've got your requirements, you've got your design, you've got your development, your testing. There's all sorts of toll gates that need to go through that, so you kind of naturally get those reality checks as you put them to, right? With the introduction of AI and even, to your words, layman's being able to come up with technical solutions, I think a reality check that everybody, even that we do at Intellias, needs to have is, should we actually do this? And what are the things that we should not be doing? Are questions that we need to ask a lot more nowadays. In the traditional world, before AI, it was always a money question, right? Do we have the time for this? Do we have the manpower for this? What are conflicting priorities, especially in the iGaming industry, right? You've got commercial product and safer gambling, compliance, always vying for the same kind of resources. And now that AI comes around the corner with the fantastic tools that we've been seeing, commercial people can make their prototypes. They can suddenly go off and talk with customers or players to see, hey, here's a fantastic new thing that we can actually roll out to one of our brands, but it's not been checked with tech yet, or it's not been checked with the overall priority of the business yet. So all of this kind of comes back to what Leigh and I were talking about as well, about champions and getting your basics right. But what we all need to be doing is asking ourselves, should we really not be building this? Because everything is possible nowadays.
Leigh, how about you?
3 things. Governance, similar to what you were saying about should we not, ownership, fit, strategy, Second thing is security. Many of these tools create data that or product can be available more broadly. You need to protect your data, what software tools it goes into, who has access to it. That can get very complicated, but security cannot in any circumstances be compromised because you're compromising your whole organization. So security is critical. And third is cost.
Yep.
Again, you can build these applications, but they cost money to run. So, and they might cost an amount of money now, and they might cost more tomorrow. So, again, the cost of running these applications. So I feel like there's 3 reality checks that I'd call out if I was inside a company wanting to try all sorts of AI applications. Is does it meet my governance, my security, and my cost criteria?
Or do I need to create governance for it?
Yeah.
And now let's talk about what the tech actually can unlock, whether that's AI, but also, Leigh, you mentioned earlier, real-time data and the use cases of that and the opportunities that that unlocks too. And one of those, I would say, from what I understand with Future Anthem, is personalization delivered under 100 milliseconds with Amplifier AI processing, 9.3 billion bets a month.
Near 11 now.
Oh, yeah. Well, there you go.
Goes up every day.
Oh,
I'm happy to say.
So at that scale, what does real time mean beyond
Sure.
speed?
Let me give you a couple of examples because we call it acting in the moments that matter. So very, very simple. And let's be honest, apps like Uber and Spotify have driven real-time behavior. People expect now, and nothing less will persist. And when people have left you, the idea of getting an email to bring you back, when was the last time you read an email from Uber or Spotify? You just don't, right? It's all about the in-app experience. So we obsess about real time. We're a real-time business. And what does it mean? Well, it means that if you've had a losing bet in the first half of a match, rather than wait 8 days, which many traditional processes do to predict churn, we do it in about 8 seconds. So has the player had a losing bet? Was it a bad beat? Have they got any open bets? And if it's a bad experience, give them an award at halftime. So, hey, sorry you lost your bet on the first half. Here's a bet on us for the second half. Now that turns a negative experience into a positive experience. I go into a restaurant, I don't have a great main meal, but the guy comes over to me or girl and says at the end, hey, look, sorry, main meal wasn't great. I took a little bit longer. Hit desserts on us. I'm leaving the restaurant thinking this is a good experience, not a bad experience. So these are the differences about how to react in real time and why they're fundamentally important. So it's for consumer retention, consumer engagement, market share, all those really, really good commercial imperatives. But not just commercial imperatives, it's also for risk as well. Because if a player spends beyond their means, they're often doing it inside the session. It's no good to come in the day after and find players that have lost all their money yesterday. You have the data, you have the opportunity to interact with them in real time. And our data shows that if you interact with someone in real time in a session with a personalized message, you can reduce their risk profile by as much as 30 to 40%. And you can find risk 72% of cases faster if you act in real time. So for us, it's undoubtable that the next phase of industry is in real time. That's why most and all these companies want to move into this ability to work in real time. And it's hard, whether it's data availability, content management system, the CRM doesn't do real-time push notifications, whatever, you're always, working to your lowest bar, unfortunately. So, working with companies like us, you can find the route to taking a real-time action or an intervention just to demonstrate what the art of the possible is. And then just come back to the beginning. Why? Because consumers expect it. You're naive to think they don't. So that's why you've got to own that moment that matters, and that's how we help our customers and their players.
Before we actually came live on the podcast as well, we were talking about the World Cup. So how would those opportunities be unlocked for something like the World Cup and players that are looking to enjoy the World Cup beyond just watching it?
Yeah, well, I think it's maybe 42 matches. No, more matches. I got that wrong. I think it's 42 teams. So the amount of available betting opportunities for marketing teams to run the permutation of campaigns that they want to run for personalized campaigns is almost impossible, particularly if it's on a different time zone. So, Europe's asleep, the matches are happening. How are you running all that? Well, the only way is by having AI-driven automation where, you set your commercial objectives. I want to reach all my players who had losing bet, like I say, no open sessions, their engagement score is declining, their risk score, less than X, etc., etc. And the AI is working all this real time based on the events themselves and what's happening, and is able to trigger that campaign, is able to measure that campaign and to reinforce it so that player has that individualized promotional communication inside the app when they're inside the app. So I think the way I think about it is taking enormous complexity, data at scale, really distilling it down so there is no human involved. It's an automated, always on, real-time marketing campaign where the game itself, the app itself is reacting to how you're behaving right there in that second. And that's an impossible human task, but it's definitely not an impossible technology task. So, that's how I think about it for the World Cup. And just why? Because you want to give people who bet on the World Cup a better betting experience. So they stay with you after the World Cup, which is you're spending all this money on media and sponsorship. Feels pretty obvious. But again, I think that's why we call it do you want to win the race to real-time personalization? It's a race. Who's going to get there first? How do you do it best? Because, you'll retain players for longer. And fortunately, our customers are doing exactly that. And that's a really good application of it.
How would you say is what's the most exciting thing for you, Jeroen, in terms of the opportunities that are unlocked with the potential of tech nowadays?
Well, I have to stick to the real-time element here because it's not just advantageous for players, but it's also for the operators and companies themselves. I mean, to Leigh's point about AI actually making decisions and doing things that humans can't do, that's a massive benefit for any operator. We've actually worked with a client where we spent a good half a year, I think, basically implementing what we're calling an AI-ready data engine with them. We reviewed all of their data. We've restructured everything to ensure that we could actually facilitate the real-time processing of all of the events, so that this client could actually work much closer with their clients. And recently they've actually shown that they were able to proactively reach out to some of those clients with money-saving suggestions based on the real-time data that was coming in. And that's equally important for big events like the World Cup or any of the other big events, right? I mean, of course, you want to give the players the best possible experience. There's nothing that I can add to Leigh that he hasn't already eloquently put. But by that same token, the moment companies can start reacting to when things go bad or when journeys aren't going the way that they're supposed to be going or when interventions are required when they need to, that is massively exciting. That's an area where operators can still see a lot of benefit by implementing these kind of solutions, which does kind of go back to our conversation earlier about decision making and processing, but getting that real-time layer right and getting those events into dashboards, even into the human hands, so that they can make decisions a lot quicker. It's massive cost benefit and opportunities for operators.
I think just the numbers as well, when we intervene in real time in sessions, particularly when we're trying to prevent early exit, if someone's having a bad experience, you're talking to 3 to 6% improvements in NGR. Which is pretty substantial, right? If you're talking a big base where someone's got 100,000 daily active users, that can be very significant. Similarly, when we're awarding individualized bonuses, we're always looking for bonus efficiency, and we know when we target players, 80% of players that we target have a bonus efficiency of bonus to NGR of under 10%. And this, again, the AI is doing all of this, right? And it's really hard for traditional methods to get at these numbers. But again, with very sophisticated algorithms that act in the moment, you're able to reach really quite compelling numbers, which ultimately is how some of these solutions are measured. But yeah, that's really what a lot of operators are striving for, that kind of level of growth.
When we talk about implementation of real-time data and AI, let's think about, once you implement, what would break first? What's the real risk to this either being a successful implementation or something that needs more work? So Jeroen, what about you? What do you think about that?
Well, kind of comes back to processes and decision making that we discussed earlier. The technological challenges are there. We've spent a whole bit now talking about data. There's a massive amount of complexity that you need to get right. Those are technical challenges that we do luckily have design patterns for, and we started solving for. But the operational ownership is definitely a heavy fundamental that operators need to get right. Who owns the decision making? Who owns what does good look like? And who is actually there to make sure that they can intervene when the system isn't expecting the way that they want it to work? I mean, AI still isn't perfect, right? That we can definitely model and make sure that the models get towards like an 80-90% accuracy, but there will still be hallucinations. There will still be times when maybe not the right determinations are made. That's a process that we continuously improve on and do. So operators need to make sure that they have those processes in place and have that ownership in place, because otherwise the kind of experiences that you want to get out of there, the kind of improvements internally that you want to achieve with real-time applications will become much more difficult to implement.
What about yourself, Leigh? What do you think breaks first?
I think I've got an answer of 3 again, but maybe just focus on 2. One is, again, fairly basic. If our champion leaves the organisation, sometimes you're a bit stuck, and being picked up and taken forward. We've seen that happen in a similar vein if a company gets bought, and the acquirer has a different view or vendor or priority. That can also impact. And I wouldn't say the thing that breaks necessarily, but the thing that is complex is measurement of the impacts of these solutions. Now, we're fortunate because we have all the transactional data, so we can see what's happened by virtue of interventions that we've recommended, our system has recommended. And we have target control groups, so we have a measurement methodology that we deploy. So we can absolutely see and measure the impact that our software is having. But then you get into the debate, the client wants to measure it slightly differently. And that's because they have analytical resource, maybe sometimes clients don't, but mostly bigger companies do have big teams and they've got views. Maybe their measurement methodology is slightly different to ours. And so what we find interesting and helpful is when our clients do it in an open book way, because then we can compare and contrast, because there's many different ways to measure things. We have our way and clients have their ways. It's much easier to work together like that than it is when someone is a closed book and no, we're going to measure ourselves. So measurement is not necessarily something that breaks, but if you're talking about an engagement, what can fail in an engagement, and because these are innovation technologies, it's so important to get right from the first time, that first delivery, to build trust, build confidence. This AI works, it is delivering value, there's no downtime. All of these really important things that people often take for granted, which I never do. So demonstrating, hey, look, this is our first implementation with you. You are a national lottery. Please be happy that we've sped up your lobby automation process from 3 weeks down into about 3 seconds or 3 minutes. And it's all personalised and it's all automated. That's great. And by the way, players who engage with recommendations play 2.5 times as many games. So it has double success. They might have just taken the automation as a value of success, at the beginning. So, but you need to do that first one well, because this first one gets you your second, your third. You do casino. Well, can you do our sports now as well? Yes, we can. And then you start to get into worlds of cross-sell because you've got more data on that player. So that journey is really important. But yeah, you a little bit of experience. We've had 6 years of it, of what, how to work with customers and expectations and management, and then just being good at it, and then always caring about having that high bar. So like I say, it's not necessarily about how things break, but it is about how you can succeed to avoid the pitfalls of failure is the way I would think about it.
If success is more personalization and player satisfaction, and that personalization might lead to questions around player protection as well, if people are genuinely more enticed because it's more personalized. What are your thoughts around the 3 things around relevance, revenue and responsibility.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts around
So
those
I
three?
think for me, you're touching on the most important thing around applications of AI and the next phase of the industry. And just a little story: when we started Future Anthem, we recognised under UK regulations we couldn't just be a monetization engine because UK regulations would never permit it. What we find is that compliance and responsibility is far over here on the right, and marketing and commercial is far over here on the left. They have different objectives, they have different compensation arrangements, they're often in different locations, they're on different systems. It is almost impossible for them to converge together so that you can take a single view of a player from a risk perspective as well as a commercial perspective. And that, I feel, was the opportunity for the next phase of the industry, and certainly a lot of tier ones that focus on sustainability believe that, because players who stay safe have twice as many lifetime sessions. Players who go into risk zone are 4 times more likely to churn. Our belief is it's commercial imperative to keep players safe, keep them healthy, keep them sustainable. So I think you will see this convergence of risk and commerciality. We certainly do it in our system. We've always done it, so we adjust our recommendations based on risk scores. We take exclusion lists directly from the operators, don't award these players because they're on the exclusion list. So we've always baked it in our system, but I would think if we're not the only one, we're very close to being a very small minority in the industry that have the two connected at its heart. And it hasn't been relevant to date, quite honestly. It has for us, but not to the industry. But I certainly know from board presentations I've given in the last 6 months that is high on companies' agendas. They realise it's no longer sustainable. And the regulator is saying that if you can market in real time, you should be able to risk prevent in real time. You should be able to do the both, Mr. Operator. So there's quite a lot of regulatory pressure to bring those two into the middle. But structurally, for many reasons, still quite hard for operators to do.
Before I move on to you, Jeroen, on the same question, I'm just curious, Leigh, why was it so important for you 6 years ago to have this as part of your foundations, player protection and responsibility?
I think, Stuart, it's pretty simple. It's about our ethics and our culture. So when I set up the business, it was just it was a non-negotiable for me. I didn't want to be a compliance business. We were being asked to pitch against compliance-orientated software, and we weren't there. We were very definitely in the commercial, but we wanted to do both. And then the early team, our chief data officer, Chris, Ed, his second person who came in, we all had worked in RG and had a real strong lean towards that, and it was just so natural. And we did it from the beginning, and it happened that our first models that we built, no one had, so we won a lot of tier ones through it, and then they opened up the rest of our products, and then we got asked to keep on investing in the software because it did. So we went on a journey, and never, like I say, from a necessarily regulatory compliance perspective, but always from a commercial perspective. So I think direct answer to your question is just it was always in our DNA, always in our vision, and always in our heart. And that's, I mean, if you look on our websites, one of our values, responsibility is the heart. We call it responsible growth. It's not just about getting growth, it's getting responsible growth. So it's just been a really important part of us. And again, being really honest with you, it's not quite easy to find your place in the whole conversation because people are trying to fit you over here or over here, and we're like right in the middle. But I think it's coming into its own now for us, and our clients, particularly the lotteries who we work with in Canada and beyond, are really starting to value this aspect of us. And I think you'll see more in the next period.
It's great to hear. You being in the middle was the right place to be, sounds like.
Didn't always feel like that, Stuart. Yeah, I'm happy it is now. Thank you.
That's great. Jeroen, how about you?
So I've got extensive experience with safer gambling during my tenure at Entain. You might have heard about the ARC program that Entain launched a few years back. I was there to help implement that on the data platform side of things, which was interesting to say the least. But if you look at the gambling industry as a whole, regulation is massively important. Just to go on a little bit of a tangent, but regulated markets are safer for players, and you want players to operate safely within those environments. The moment you let them go to the black markets is when you lose them, basically. Gambling is entertainment, and it should always remain entertainment. So it's only natural that these technologies need to converge. And I think you might have noticed a lot of similar themes throughout our conversation today, that AI helps us to converge all of these technologies, going from traditional software development to actually in an ecosystem where everything can be connected because of the technological power that we now possess with AI, presents massive opportunities to ensure that compliance and safer gambling is always incorporated into the decision making that we do, which ties back to the whole, we need to make the right decisions at the right time with AI.
Yeah, I think actually it's a really good point that we haven't touched on yet is the relationship between Intellias and Future Anthem. Jeroen, from your point of view, what's your experience been like working with Future Anthem as well?
It's been really fantastic and interesting, actually. The project that we're working together with, the platform that we're building for Future Anthem, actually embodies a lot of the topics that we've been talking about today. Future Anthem already has really fantastic AI tooling that has been made available for operators, but it is still at a level where the engineers know how to work with it, but the rest of the organization struggles a bit, either due to the lack of user journeys or due to maybe not understanding things properly. And the big value add that Future Anthem will now bring with this platform is actually that non-technical roles or anybody of relevance within the operator that wants to enhance the experience of their players can actually start doing that with the platform that we'll make available to them in a governed way, in a measurable way, and in an easy way, so that AI can actually be used for the right moment at the right time.
Any final thoughts, guys? This has been a really... I didn't expect the conversation to take this kind of turn towards the end, but I think it's been a really positive one and something that's made me think, especially about, because I personally obviously know that this is going to go on LinkedIn, and from my point of view, this has been a learning curve for me to actually think, well, I don't need to be so scripted. I don't need to be thinking about looking at my phone and thinking, oh, what's my next question going to be for this very interview? Authenticity is one of those buzzwords that's going to be, continuously rising in the conversation with AI. And I want to thank you both for really bringing that out in the conversation and helping me learn about, actually, I don't need to be doing all that. I can just have a genuine conversation with you both and have opinions and have thoughts that might, be scary to some, or people might disagree, but this is where we get the best conversations and the best human insights and responses. And if there are any final takeaways that you would both like to share before we finish this interview, I mean, I would love to continue talking, and we could do like several more episodes on
I'm going to
this.
give you a small one just
Please.
to finish up, because the other thing we haven't spoken about is we're all here in person.
Yes, it's very true. Yeah,
Speaks volumes, right? The personal interaction is still so important. And again, you're not going to lose that. And obviously, behaviour's changed with COVID beyond anyone's imagination. I still feel like the world is still sometimes in a COVID hangover, but that's another story. But just really wanted to emphasise the point. Yes, AI will change so much, but human interaction still remains fundamentally important for enjoyment, for positivity, and for success. So just calling out the thank you, and I'm very happy to be here in Malta, spending time talking about this with both of you.
likewise.
I don't have anything to add.
No.
We're just rhyming to each other at this stage, so I really appreciate the opportunity.
Likewise, I'm very grateful too. I think, at least I know you and I, Jeroen, we are remote working. How about you, Leigh? Do you mostly remote work? Is it mostly online?
Yeah,
hybrid?
3-4 days a week in the office.
Okay, great. I mean, from my perspective, this is the first time I'm really having these genuine human interactions for months. I'm usually online doing it on a Teams call. It's just a reminder of how genuinely important this is, and maybe how I shouldn't be so averse to, return to office sort of policies and all that sort of stuff. I think there's genuine value to this. So again, thank you both very much. And if we ever get the chance to do this again, I can't wait for the next opportunity, because this has been, like, I think, just a tip of the iceberg, and I've learned a lot, and I think we can learn a lot more from each other. So thank you very much for the human conversation here today.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, guys.